We all right. I haven't been able to summarize like yesterday's stuff on um when you guys sign on tomorrow, you'll see like what we're working on next. TLDR is um we're working on two things in parallel, the definitions. But the benefit of doing the definitions across multi-languages is we want to set it up for Omar, for instance. So whenever we um, have the ability to parse multiple languages, we can also abstract it in a way where it's not reliant on anything with the workspace manager, Git, etc. So then you can plug your FFI logic in right away and you should be able to get input output. So those are some of the things we're going to be focusing on also with ensuring that we increase the testing and you'll see. I'll provide a detailed update on that. And then the second thing we're working on is just the distribution for the language server side, how we're going to do that. Yeah, that's like super high level overview of what we talked about yesterday. Uh, what do you guys want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the security stuff, Jan, or um, what do you think?
So yeah, so we can do this as FII and do further discussion asynchronously. I pasted a link to the document design update
Mhm.
regarding how indexer should be called.
Okay.
Uh, the To provide more context, I'm not sure if we discussed this before, at least I don't remember it, but I'm a bit concerned about the fact that we would call the indexer just directly from the main Zookt indexer process. The
Okay.
reason is that the Zookt indexer process has access to effectively all
All code.
user,
Yeah. Yeah.
all repositories, all data. So the moment there is some security issues like with user content handling in the
Yeah.
indexer, yeah, we are vulnerable to basically the fact that attacker could read any of the repository.
Source code. Yeah. Coming
So
through. Yeah.
I thought that ideally we sh it might be better to run the indexer in more isolated way.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think that it makes sense to confirm this with security team. What are their thoughts about it, and what would be the best way of isolation? And related to this is if we wouldn't use just direct FFI call, then how we would call the indexer, and
Hmm.
then Dmitry pointed out that it would still be good to have single binary. So he suggested to still package the indexer together, the Zookt indexer,
Yeah.
so we always distribute the binary,
Same
but
binary.
for executing the indexer, we would call the Zookt indexer binary again with some additional parameter
Right.
in some more isolated environment.
Is
So
that possible, Dimitri?
uh,
Is that possible?
So I don't really see a problem with that. I can
Like
just shell out to another
yeah,
process.
executing in a different process?
yeah, so execution in different processes is not problem in general. Uh, I mean, there is just a question to answer if it's necessary or if it's preferred, and whether we use the same binary or not. But yeah, I agree with Dmitry that it's possible.
I'm wondering, I mean, if we're executing a separate process, it's still, I guess the reason for still using FFI is so that we support the different architectures and whatnot. I guess what would make it hard to package two binaries versus one, Dimitri?
So let's say Omnibus. We are working to introduce GitLab Zookt binary into Omnibus. And if we need a separate binary, I think we will need to basically repeat all this work, go through that process again to bundle another binary with
Gotcha.
Omnibus. And we need to do the same for our CNG images. We need to tell all the self-managed customers who want to run bare metal that they need to install another binary alongside GitLab Zook binary. I think it just
Yeah,
complicates a lot of things without really obvious benefits.
that makes sense. Okay. Um, and luckily we're working out some of the FFI kinks. Let me link this to you actually. Because we definitely have to solve this soon so you guys can, because Omar, I know we have like a POC, but if we want to make this a thing, uh I think it would be good to have people talk. But the indexing team for embeddings wants to do the same thing for FFI. So, Omar, this might be beneficial for you. Um, if you take a look at the MR, James is setting up some of the C stuff, some of the bindings essentially. We just need to figure out how to actually um, publish the bindings and whether or not you guys prefer dynamic or static linking. I tagged you in that, Dimitri, as well. So um, that would
I
be
think
the only. Oh,
we've discussed it, and I think our preference was static linking because if it's dynamic, it also complicates the distribution.
mhm.
So it's essentially similar to having a separate binary in that sense.
Oh, I mean static or dynamic linking from code parser repo to the indexer repo.
Oh, I see. I
Um,
think it would be nice to have bindings exactly as a normal Go library so that we don't need a Rust compiler or something else on
Ego
the
compiler or anything. Yeah.
GitLab Zookt side. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So whatever the outcome is from there,
Does it mean, sorry,
we
does it mean
record.
the static? Because I was starting looking into the SMR. It's not very clear for me
Yeah.
because I don't have a context, and I was trying to figure out what needs to be done to move it forward because James is away
He's
for
out.
2 weeks. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but again, it's not very clear for me what to do. And the first step, I was trying to just run it locally, and it didn't work on Mac. And I don't know, was it for a reason or uh,
It looks
yeah,
like he's doing
if
static linking, which means it's compiling from the source. Compiling via Sego. I think you still need to build it from Rust. Um, but we can work together on that too, because we'll need this for knowledge graph as well.
maybe you can give me a couple of hints how to what to do, what we need to do to make it forward, to push forward.
Yeah, we essentially high level, essentially what we need to do is I think it should be able to compile correctly. Then the next part is essentially compiling it as a final step in the CI. And then we would add a release step in the release job that builds the final binary that would be dynamically linked. And then whatever normal process we do for the package publishing. So we might need your help there, Dimitri, since you're probably familiar. Whoever's familiar with the Go packaging. So it would include the normal Go publishing for the bindings. But that essentially the part where it might make sense to do a fork of this repo, do get it actually publishing correctly in the sense that we build the bindings that need to be dynamically linked. That's another question. What OS does it need to support? Just Linux or all of them, Dimitri?
I was thinking Linux and macOS because we use it for development, maybe
Mhm.
AMD 64 and ARM 64.
Okay.
just the default kind of set of platforms.
Okay. So that's what we would do is here, I can walk you through it if you want. Because this is exactly what Omar will need to do as well. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
So essentially, and these C flags. So all right, so let me pull up the repo that I linked actually.
Maybe you can give some context about this MR. I didn't see this MR before, so why I imagine the GitLab code parser is being used from the knowledge graph,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So why the GitLab code parser is also like exposing FFI? Which Go project is gonna consume it?
The indexer for is it Dimitri can answer that.
Yeah, for code bases chat context, we're going to use GitLab Elasticsearch Indexer. The name is not ideal, but it will actually chunk the code, load it from Gitly, chunk it, and insert it into pgvector, OpenSearch, or Elasticsearch. It depends on your configured adapter.
Oh, okay. So this is for the search. Okay.
For
The embedded.
embeddings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a good point. I mean, we could have just one pipeline and essentially expose the bindings from knowledge graph, and it can expose chunks, a chunker binding as well.
Does it mean that I should proceed with my MR regarding FFI to the knowledge graph?
Yes, yes. That either way you have to. What I'm saying is like it might may make more sense because the knowledge graph is using the Rust crate, the parser Rust crate, to expose a bindings, the same bindings that you're exposing, but add like a chunker feature to it, and the indexing team uses that. So it's all one pipeline. I don't know, but then that's the only issue with that is like it's additional complexity, right? They would anytime they want to update something on the chunking side, they'd have to go through the whole pipeline. But
And maybe size as well, because we'd need to bundle Kuzu.
yeah, that's also an issue. So, okay, so let me show you guys this is where I took it from actually. So this repo just demonstrates how to compile Rust from Go, and it's broken down essentially by this. So in the lib here, uh, this is the Rust crate. It's a simple Rust crate, right? Just saying like printing the hello message and taking the string from the FFI call, right? That's what's happening here. And if you go back from there, it exposes headers. In the repo that I made, we have automatic header generation here. So I added like an ability to just auto gen headers. I forget where I put them. Maybe it was in the make file. So this generates C bindings. So this is just a building on top of this to make life easier because he just committed the headers directly. But he said you can even see you can use C by gen. TLDR is this some of the part of this script here auto generates the headers based on the Rust source code. So in the and Omar probably you already probably know this, but in the code that James is doing here, he just has the base Golang logic for adding files. Like this is the library logic, right? And at the top, these are the flags. And so this is how you can compile via Cgo to actually target either dynamically or statically, depending on what you want to do. Dynamically requires the binary to be built. And then static, I think you have to literally compile it. You have to have like the Rust compiler available and you compile it from scratch. In this case, I think it makes sense he's doing static because we just want to ship one binary and then publish that from this repo so that the consuming library just imports the dynamic library, right? Is that the same? Is that what you're thinking, Dimitri, as well?
Yep, I believe so. Maybe it will require some experimentation, but that was the idea. So for the GitLab Zook binary and for GitLab Elasticsearch binary, I think the approach will be exactly the same. We'll just consume the bindings library.
Yeah. Um, and I'm pretty sure it does that. I know it works because Kuzu, that's what Kuzu does. So if you look up Kuzu Go, um, I'll link this also in the agenda. Um, sorry. Yes, I use Edge, guys. Um, I'm probably the only person on the planet that uses Edge. I'll link this as well. You can see they built the specific bindings and they commit it directly to the repository. So these are probably the same bindings that we want to build. But these are the literal binaries. This is 22 megabytes. What is this? How many is this? 32 megabytes. Yeah. So this is Kuzu. So whenever you use the Kuzu bindings for Go, for instance, on the query side, right? That's what's happening here. Is essentially it's installing it and dynamically linking it, I'm pretty sure. They may even have it, they might even expose an option for static as well. But yeah, so back to this. Essentially, we expose. So I'm just trying to catch up literally. We expose like the C, the C headers here. So Rust is like the Siege bindgen is able to detect what structs actually come out of this based off the macros here in Rust. And then lastly, in your Go program, you can just literally use them. So, C string hello world, C string whatever, and then free up the memory. So that's what James is doing. His is a little bit more complex because I think they're actually passing in the file content into the chunker. But it might make sense now I'm thinking about it to go with the strategy of just reading the file from disk. Although I think in the parser library, we want to avoid like in the library code reading from disk. Because this is more of like a library than something that can read from disk. I think for your case, Omar, it's okay just to pass in like an array of file paths, right? As strings. But
I mean, for initial indexing, we are going to read from the disk, but for incremental indexing, which is I haven't worked on it yet. We were talking about like passing the files via like FFI via memory, but I mean, I haven't worked on that yet, and I haven't explored it at the moment.
and I was also thinking it might make sense if you're doing the same interface, might as well just send all the files for fresh index as well. So we don't have to traverse.
Yeah, that's what we do for Zooked, for exact code search.
Yeah, like not the files, not the files content. I'm just saying the list of files.
So even for if there is a change, incremental indexing, so we just push the changes to directory and then we pass it to the re-indexer. That's what you mean?
I'm saying you would always pass an array of files, and in the case of reindexing, you send which files have been modified, the same as git status, essentially. Because that's what reindex uses. It has the change. It looks over the change and it says, has the file been modified, added, etc. Right? So same for you. You would pass in very similar data for reindexing. I was just saying you can also think about instead of for the fresh index, instead of just sending like here's the directory, so you don't have to do directory traversal logic. You can just read all the files from their paths, essentially from the list of files, and just say, hey, this is a fresh index.
So that because at the moment, Go the Zopt indexer, it passes the directory. So what you mean is that it should be the responsibility of the Zopt indexer to traverse the files and then pass them to the knowledge graph. I feel like this is
It's I don't know. It's up to you. I was just throwing out options. So
So for the
I-
first iteration, we discussed with Omar that we would use what the
just the
knowledge
directory.
graph indexer
yeah.
uses at the moment. And my
Yeah.
understanding is that at this point, knowledge graph indexer uses, we pass it the directory with, here is the repository, parse it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we can do that.
I mean, I agree that we want to iterate on this and improve it in future, like
Yeah.
do the incremental indexing or whatever. But my understanding is that this is the current behavior.
Okay.
I would say that for incremental indexing, I just saw a comment from Michael about that he's working on it. For incremental indexing, feel free to do whatever interface like if you want us to pass the list of files or directory as well, whatever you want, and I will also try to modify it in case if something like I need a different interface. So you don't be concerned about it from the FFI side.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're trying to at least design it to make your life easier so that the indexer takes in the list of like a generic data structure for saying which is as if you were to print out get status and get the list
Yeah,
of files.
because for incremental indexing, I don't know yet. Like for example, like how can the Zopt indexer tell the knowledge graph, hey, this file has been deleted. So that means like at the moment with the if I pass directory, it works, but like for initial indexing, but for changes later, the interface has to be different, especially that if there's something deleted. Yeah.
Yeah, that's up to Dimitri because I don't know how you interact with Gitaly in that case, right? But I'm assuming you would get that information from Gitaly.
Yeah, exactly. So you would see all the created, modified, and deleted files, and you can act accordingly.
Yeah, I saw that, but but the question is, how do I pass that to the knowledge graph?
Through FFI is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, but if this is gonna happen on the story on the disk, uh, yeah, it has to be in a specific format. I don't know, like I
Yes,
still need
yeah,
to look
yeah.
into it.
Here, let me show you. Let me show you real quick.
Sorry for interrupting. Can we take a step back because you jumped over the topic and I still
Oh yeah, sorry.
some
Yes,
parts is not clear to me
yeah, yeah.
because I don't have a lot of knowledge. I want to talk about this static dynamic thing we discussed.
Mhm.
So if I understand correctly from the discussion, static means when we compile, it will compile. We need to have a Rust compiler
Yes,
to compile
yes,
this, right?
yes.
And dynamic, it's when we just provide binaries and use them. But I think it
And it
was
links
mentioned
it.
somewhere, or I've heard it somewhere, or in the issue, what we want to have like a Go module where user will just install it without having Rust. Is this correct? And that
Yes.
means we need to go with dynamic.
You need to build with static, and the Go consumption needs to be dynamic. So it is
Okay,
confusing.
yeah.
So in this repo, um, I'll do like scala draw. Like we have parser repo. We have what is this called? Elasticsearch, right?
Yep, GitLab
Okay.
Elasticsearch Indexer.
So this repo, and we have GitLab code parser repo. This would be parse. So this would be like the steps would be um, build binary via static build, commit binary and Golang library code to repository, right? Um, uh, publish tag. I think Go uses tags, right? When you consume a module. If you consume a Golang module from another repository, do you use tags to tag the version? Isn't it like go get URL and version tag?
Think so.
You guys use Go. Come on.
What is the Golang library code? Do you mean the static library?
The Golang library code for here, I'll show you. In this case, in James's case, for the parsing, it's like in this case chunk files, right? So it says like a chunker chunk files in the routine here. He passes in the file contents, and then he gets a result back. Make sense? It's just the library for interacting with the Rust code via FFI.
Yeah, so the static library, so the .a file, you mean?
Sorry?
The static library, which is the file that ends with A. The file has extension A, which is the static library, if that's what um
I'm saying like in this case it would be the what is this target release. So the build from Rust essentially.
yes, yeah. So that's a static library. I mean, it can be consumed by Go or any other language as well. So yeah.
Yeah. The C bindings can be consumed by any language, but this is just a Go like library for just the raw methods themselves. It's like a one-to-one essentially. Like chunk files here
Yeah.
is also, I think, chunk files
Mhm.
in Rust. You see, chunk files, and then in Go, chunk files.
Mhm.
Right? Does that make sense, Italy? Hopefully.
Well, not really.
Um,
So the issue, I've compiled the Rust library locally, and when I run the Go test, and they didn't work. So if I compiled for Mac, why it didn't work? This is not clear to me.
did you try on Linux, you said?
No, I've tried on Mac, but I've compiled the Rust library using cargo release, build release. And if you scroll to the very top, uh, it targets this target release directory.
Mm-hmm.
And still there was issue with this static flag. So if I have a static, the Go tests didn't work. But if I remove static, the Go test worked
Do
again.
work.
Yeah. I will try to read more about this topic because again, this is new to me, and maybe that's the reason I don't get it. And we probably shouldn't
I mean,
spend a lot of time on. I
yeah.
just want to some like hints or like directions where to go. But I will dedicate time tomorrow to try and understand what does this mean. So
Okay.
But
I
by
mean,
the
if
way,
it's only me, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this. I will try to get more. I'm just trying to understand what needs to be done. And um,
just want to mention that Claude doesn't agree that we need static in the Go binding file. So now I'm thinking maybe I can just create a test project with Rust Go bindings and try to use it from another Go project without a Rust compiler. If everything works, then we'll have this path forward.
Yeah, if you want to try that, that would probably be way simpler.
so again, to compile this or whatever to do with this and create another Go project and pull this module, Go module, and try to run it or something like this, right? Did I understand correct?
Yeah, I was just thinking to create like either a test project or clone or not clone, fork code parser and try to actually commit these compiled binaries from Rust and then
Okay.
reuse it from another project.
Okay.
Just to
We'll look
have
into
it
this.
end-to-end working.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Cool. And this is the same thing Omar is gonna have to do too. So, cool. Hopefully that helps. But I can help you guys wherever needed. So, Sweet. Binary size. You want to talk about that, Jan?
Yeah, it was also touched today that currently, if I try to build the Zookt indexer together with the Omar's draft MR's indexer, I mean, including indexer, the size was over 130 megabytes, and I expect it would be even more in future. So I think it's super important to make sure that we are able to build just core functionality in this knowledge graph indexer without other dependencies which are necessary for client-side smooth usage.
Yeah.
But that there is this core library and we put more function into layers on top of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why we have it split by crates. So in the crates, that's what I was mentioning earlier in Slack, Omar, is we want to theoretically only depend on this, really, and whatever this depends on. So right now, this depends on Workspace Manager, but I think we'll want to remove this dependency. So that's something for us to do. And then you're only reliant on these dependencies, event bus, which is like very minimal dependencies, and then of course the Kuzu database. And then most of the other dependencies like the Axum and the client side ones that you were talking about, Jan. Um, as long as we're building from this crate and not from the other crates, like essentially the bindings crate that Omar creates, as long as it's only consuming this and we remove Workspace Manager, I think we should be good to go as far as making sure we don't include client-side binaries.
But at the moment, like the execute project indexing is a method on the workspace manager. So I still need to import instantiate work manager instance. Is that fine?
Yeah, so I was thinking essentially you can consume this. So if you go to execution and you go to executor, so you see this execute workspace indexing.
Mhm.
I'm thinking it might be better even to remove this entirely here and move it to a separate like unified crate. But essentially here is what you would be using. So this is just takes in the workspace folder path, and really
Okay.
we should get rid of that even, and it should just be project path. And then so you see how it's using get-a-list file source. Essentially, you might want to just build the exact same thing, and we can have duplicate code for now until we move it around. But the core logic, this process full files with database is actually this is actually what you want to use. Sorry. So this is really probably what you want to use because this is where you want the Parquet files to be written. This specifies the database dependency. So you'll create a new database. Where is that? Database dependency. Jean Gabriel wrote
Okay.
that. Does that
I'm
make sense?
gonna, yeah, I'm gonna call. I was looking into that before the call. I will, sorry, I will try to call the execute project indexing for now. But if you extract this code, which is process files, into its own method, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's called method or function in Rust.
Yeah.
I can call it later, so it's fine. But because the indexing executor needs workspace manager, I think, like when I
Yeah,
yeah,
we have to
that's
remove that dependency essentially, yes.
yeah, but it's fine. Like it's not so much code, something that can be cleaned up later.
Yeah. It shouldn't hopefully block you too much. What was I saying? And the file source is the most important thing. So again, this is where we're going to be spending most of our time now that we have like the full end-to-end integration working for the language server.
Mhm.
Um, um, if you go to, it's not file info, project source here. So in this case, we have like a generic file source for path file source, and you see this get files. So you'll want to implement your own file source. So what I would do if I were you is just copy, sorry. Okay. What I would do if I were you is in the executor here, just literally create a new method, call it what and dependencies. This takes in dependencies. I wouldn't even do that. I would just create like a new, for instance, maybe like server side file for now. Like we'll definitely clean it up and make it prettier later. But I would do is like create a function here and be like, uh, index project server side or something, right? I'm just spitballing here. And you would pass in, you would create the dependencies that you need that are only for this method here. And then you should be good to go. And then you see this file source. So instead of using Gitalisk file source, you would use your own file source that you would implement. And this would pull from the the file system, iterate over the files that you passed into it or the directory and just read the files from the directory, right? And pass them in, right?
And the integration test should be for this new method that I introduced on the
Yeah,
indexer.
yeah, that's what I think we do. So then when we refactor, we know we broke it immediately, if that makes sense. That's the most
Exactly.
important part, is ensuring that we have the end-to-end test. Because then
Cool. Okay.
we can move fast and then go back
Mhm.
and clean it up and know that we're breaking stuff when we're cleaning it up, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Does that help? Hopefully.
Yes, yes, that's, I mean, I was thinking about this, but on the, like, on the GKG, like, create, but it makes sense to have it on the indexer instead. Yeah.
Yep. And
So
Rust is pretty good for generics, so we can do a lot of this stuff for like more abstraction of what's server side, what's not, right? What are you gonna
so Omar, just one more point about the incremental indexing. Uh, if we are going to implement this file source for server-side parsing, maybe it might make sense to reiterate or rethink if we still want to use the directory, or as Angelo mentioned before, use unified interface for passing changed and deleted files or edit files to this method. Because so
Mhm.
far, the point was that we were relying on existing method, but for parsing whole directory. But if we are going to implement this new file source reader,
Mhm.
then maybe it might make sense to use this unified approach already, so we can reuse it for incremental updates later. Depends if it's easy or not.
Mhm.
Cool. Um, and that was we talked we covered it. Cool. That was one of the points. Anything else on that, Omar? The
No, on the project indexing, nothing. Like, I still need to probably, of course, like, look into this, like, changing from repo to file source, but
Yep,
hopefully that's something I can figure it out tomorrow.
yep,
Apart from that, I can mention quickly also, because like we are talking about the Rust code. So in my MR, I wrote comment about it. I added the link, but it's not rendering. Um, that I managed to override the directory of the target Kuzo graph database. So now when I run it locally, it's saving the graph into the zokt data on GDK instead of the home directory. So that's something for the server side. So that was easy to change, but I just wanted to point out that I added new command line argument to the zokt indexer. So we already have some command line argument, which is indexer directory, but now there's graph index directory. Um, because, yeah.
Just want to mention, I'm not sure if we should add it because we only have a single directory available, let's say in our Kubernetes container. I think we just should reuse index dir and create a subdirectory for graph database.
But I saw the index directory. It has like the default value, at least that's what on GDK was. Maybe I'm mistaken. Yeah, I can create subdirectory inside it instead, but yeah, it should not be that difficult to change. I thought, okay, for more flexibility, if we wanted to save this graph data into somewhere else in the future to pass us this argument, but I thought maybe, for example, if this argument does not exist, it's not passed, it's gonna default to some subdirectory inside the index directory, maybe something like that.
I think having an optional argument is totally fine, but it shouldn't be a required argument because it would break all
Yes.
our existing installation methods.
Yeah, that was my concern. That okay, yeah, when I added it, I didn't, of course, like implement that yet, but because it's not gonna exist, so okay, so I will let it like default to some subdirectory, but it can be overridden. Okay.
Cool.
For directory structure, we will need to use more multiple levels, because if we expect millions of repositories, it wouldn't scale well, or at least file systems struggle with millions of files with one directory. So we may want to use multiple levels of directories to access the real Kuzu database, but we
Is
can iterate on this later.
question on that is the Zooked indexer responsible for cleaning up the files?
Which files?
Any temporary files. So we write to a Parquet file um, when doing the load from step. Do you expect that the indexer removes those files? I have to verify if we do. I don't think we do right now.
So my first thought would be that the knowledge graph indexer would clean it after it, because the Zooked indexer doesn't have knowledge about what temporary files might be created by the library itself. So
It is a configurable path. So if you go here,
okay.
that's what I was showing. That's what I was saying. It's best that Omar relies on this because this is we pass in the Parquet. You can configure the Parquet directory.
Uh-huh. So it's caching
It's like a
caching
cache. It's a
tool.
cache. Just think of it as a cache.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion about this at the moment. Either is possible. So I wonder if we would want to reuse this cache between multiple runs. But
Maybe.
if it's configurable by the tool which calls it, then it makes sense that the tool which calls it also deletes it. So
Yeah, it might be better that way. Um, does that make sense, Omar? So you probably want to pass in also where the directory that you want to save intermediary files. Um,
Yeah.
do
Okay. I saw these files being generated next to the next to the Kuzu graph database. I didn't think so much about them. So that means I should pass some temporary directory and then like clean it up afterwards from the Go side. That's what you meant?
I would recommend that. So I'll explain how it works. So essentially, we have three phases. Um, it's really funny. It's a glorified ETL. So this is how like the indexer works at a high level. So the E phase is parsing files, which includes AST, etc., right? Then we extract that and pass it to the analysis phase. And the analysis phase is responsible for taking this flat data and returning graph data, is what we call it. So I'll put this here. So you can think of this as like definitions, imports, references, etc. And then the last part is the load phase. And this includes the writing. So we call it writer service or whatever. And this also includes copy from into Kuzu. So this writer service writes temporarily to a .parquet file. And then we execute the copy from statement. The binary executes that copy from statement and points it to that Parquet file. So that's how you're able to efficiently load millions of nodes in like 400, less than 400 milliseconds, right? So versus executing merge statements. So that's how we create a bunch of these Parquet files based on all the different type of relationships we're defining, essentially. So that's how we're able to make it so fast. So when you see Parquet directory, that's what I'm saying. Like think of this as like a temporary cache directory. And eventually we'll probably in the analysis, if we find memory constraints and all that stuff, this might also go to that same directory. So we should probably rename it to cache directory, but for now it's just Parquet directory. So does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because yeah, that means for sure I have to call like the inner method, which is like the process files with full with database instead. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, I would do
makes sense.
that. Hopefully
Yeah,
that makes sense though.
yeah.
It's really funny though. Like the thing seems super fancy, but it's literally just ETL. So, um,
I think
but
it also makes sense to kind of maybe like assign this responsibility for the Zopt indexer to kind of like create these temporary directories and clean them up later. Um,
yeah, I
Yeah,
would do
because yeah, I imagine that as a result, there will be also this Kuzu database in this temporary directory. So we copy it to the real location when the disindexing is done from this directory, and then we can delete the directory.
sweet. So hopefully that should get everybody started, and there's definitely gonna be a lot of moving parts, but definitely just work with what you see now, Omar, for the existing methods, and we'll work together to clean it up and make it pretty. And the major thing that I want uh, for peace of mind is essentially having some end-to-end test from the Go code that you build, that you publish, that runs your logic of running it through the method, etc via FFI, and then indexing the database, and then expecting a file out. As long as we have that, maybe as an integration test in the CI, and we know we broke it in one MR, that's what is the most important part, in my opinion, is. Um, does that make sense?
yeah, and probably, but the thing that we can still publish something to the knowledge graph, but it's not going to break the pipeline of Zopt immediately. So we need to figure out something like later um, that we know immediately that we broke something because they are two different repos and two different pipelines.
Yeah. But the more we can keep, I think the more we can keep the library code, I don't know, that's a good question. I don't know.
But maybe not, because also Jan mentioned some good point to me before that we are going always to reference some specific version of the knowledge graph. So that means every time we change that reference, the pipeline is going to run again. So it should not be a problem. I take it back.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can put that pipeline in the Zoic part as well. As long as there's some test somewhere and we know like we
Yeah,
broke it. It would be more painful though if you bump a version or try to bump the knowledge graph version, right? And then it breaks.
exactly.
That would be a little bit
Yeah.
annoying. So it might make sense to put it in the knowledge graph repo. I don't know. It's up to you.
We will have, like, of course, there will be some integration test on the knowledge graph with some Go code. The MR that you shared beginning was really good. I will take that as a reference as well.
Okay, cool. Sweet. That's it for my side. Yeah, anything else from you guys? No, maybe so.
Uh,
Oh, query
on
side.
a
We need to talk about the query side. Go ahead, Jan. Sorry.
yeah, sorry. Just I was wondering if anyone of you is aware of a project where we already did this FFI integration into Go project, because yesterday I did some minor investigation how to do this FFI integration properly, like production ready for delivery or releasing process. And I was struggling to find some examples, or to it's clear on some code level. I wasn't sure how it should be done for release ready process. So I was wondering if anyone is aware of existing example of something similar
The
in GitLab.
Oh, in GitLab, I haven't seen anything GitLab, but I know Kuzu's doing it currently. So I was basically modeling it from them. Um,
Okay,
so
cool.
we'll have to be on the bleeding edge there, but I don't think it's impossible. It just depends on how we want to link, like Dimitri said. That's the biggest thing is figuring out how to link. Once you get that, the rest should be pretty simple. And we have the semantic release already set up. So you just press release and it runs the semantic release job. And that runs a script. So in that script, we can call any compilation process that we need, or we can create like a dependency chain of jobs for, create, build in Windows, build in XYZ, and then run the final publishing step. So, um, yeah, it's just the work around that has to get done. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully everybody's excited. On the query side, I think the query side is we might want to expose um, some templatized queries. Is the plan is still to run queries directly from the Go Kuzu. Um,
Yes, that's the plan.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. Um,
I expect that the query will, for use cases like in agentic Duo tools, the query will arrive from the Rails application, and the Zookt indexer will just make sure that we open a read-only connection to the database with some timeout limits and resource limits, and it executes the query there.
So on the client side, we're exposing tools, and the approach that we want to take is essentially knowledge graph dictates everything. So we don't want to have any query specific logic in AI gateway. Um, we want it to come exclusively from knowledge graph. Including like the available queries, the tools, all that stuff. So that way we don't have to update AI gateway and deal with also the mismatch in versions if deployed versions is outdated, right? Um, all those scenarios. So and it's up to you guys how you want to design it on the server side, but I would just think about maybe exposing like the tools that you're going to expose, thinking about maybe exposing those from the actual HTTP service and just treating Rails as a pass through. And then like AI Gateway could ask Rails slash the GitLab mesh essentially what its capabilities are. So then you only have to update one place, and then the gateway is just talking to that. So I would think about that. Not necessarily needed for now, but um, yeah, that's the design approach that we're going with for like essentially you're trying to avoid tight coupling with the gateway. Is try to keep it as easily updatable as possible. So
Well, I'm not sure I fully understand. I would expect that the knowledge graph or Zookt indexer will expose the schema of the knowledge graph database for the project. Like here, you can use this schema of the database, like these entities, and it's up to you to build the query you want to use for searching.
we're
And
actually
by
we're actually
Rails, I meant that the knowledge graph will be accessible only through Rails because of accessibility checks, but it doesn't
yeah
mean
yeah
that Rails would build the query itself.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It's
saying. Is like avoid building the query in Rails or
yeah,
in
I didn't mean this. I mean that it will be just passed through endpoint. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And then the knowledge graph side, we're going, or sorry, on the client side, we're going with just pre-built tools for now, rather than just letting the LLM generate the Cypher query. Um,
that's interesting. What is the reason for that?
just because the tool, like, otherwise you have to expose the entire. We're still gonna experiment with that. Otherwise, you have to expose the entire schema, and then on top of
Mhm.
that, the way that Michael wants to design the graph database schema. Um, to so we can have optimal compression, database size, performance, like storing integers instead of strings, stuff like that. Um, so we um, might want to just think about creating the preset of tools versus just letting the LLM execute the Cypher query it wants to execute. I found in my
Yeah, yeah, sorry. There might be more not accurate. I didn't say it accurately. Yeah, I agree that even in DuoChat or somewhere there will be a tool for this. Yeah, so
yeah
there will be some basic prompt for telling LLM. So here is this knowledge graph and it has this schema. So build a query according to it. Is this what you mean? That
yeah
some tool will.
we're doing similar, but it's a raw tool. So it's like get neighbors, get or search definitions, search
Mhm,
XYZ. Those are the tools with strict schemas
mhm,
rather than a raw query input string. And we're
mhm,
sending that through MCP to the gateway. I'm saying for the Rails side, you will probably be better off doing the same pattern where you send I don't know if the Rails site supports like that MCP protocol. I know Mikhail or Mikolaj wants to do that on the Rails site as well, but whoever's doing the execution, I would just try to not hard code tools in the gateway is what I'm saying essentially.
mhm.
At all costs. It's just going to make things way more painful. And then we also have to think about one other thing we have to think about is if someone's using a local knowledge graph, which tools should come from the local knowledge graph and which ones should come from the server side. Um, but we'll work towards that as we get closer. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I would expect that when Duo workflow is used or local knowledge graph tool is available, it will be
Use that.
prioritized, and the server-side usage will be rather used in situations like, I don't know, code review or stuff like this.
Yeah, the agent stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to call that out. Keep you guys updated on that. But we'll do a part two so we can sync up on that. Um, cool. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's it for me. I'll make a summary too, of what we talked about. Vitaly, do you want me to tag you in some of the stuff there?
Yeah,
Uh,
sure. Because I will start working on some stuff, and if there is something else I can help with, it would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. All right. Thanks, guys. That's it for me. Anybody else have anything?
I
Cool.
will try to prepare a binding project maybe tomorrow, and I will
You'll
tag
do
you.
that? Okay. Yeah, then
I'll try.
tag all four of us because we're all gonna need it. So cool. All right. Bye guys.
Thank you. Bye.